call in Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I was as caught off guard as you were there for a moment there that I should find myself on my feet quite so quickly. But it is a pleasure to rise and speak on this bill, although it is with some regret, Mr. Speaker, that like many of the other contributions this evening, mine will be to oppose the bill for all the same reasons that have already been canvassed. But like others, I would like to start off by congratulating Te Urura Flavel for bringing this bill to Parliament and getting it through to Select Committee. It was a long road for Mr. Flavel. I think the bill was first introduced in July 2007 and it didn't get its first reading until June 2009. So he waited patiently for that first reading, and the issues were significant enough that most parties in the House saw fit to send the bill through to Select Committee where those issues could be properly addressed and considered. And of course it was at that Select Committee point that perhaps some of the further fishhooks in the bill were discovered. But that is not to say that there isn't resounding support for what Mr. Flavel is trying to achieve, and already a few different options have been suggested. Mr. Flavel himself said that he would like to see a review of the Public Works Act, and the chair of the Select Committee, Mr. Ockenville, said that, well, perhaps one day that'll happen, and this could be one thing that will be considered as part of that review. I hope that the debate that has occurred at Select Committee and here in the House might actually help stimulate the government into actually proceeding with such a review, and that other things may be included in that review, but that Mr. Flavel's concerns might also be addressed. The bill, of course, sought to ensure that the former owners of Māori land, or general land for that matter, acquired by the Crown for the purposes of public work, were given the first right of refusal at such a point when the Crown no longer required that land, and also for some redress when that land was used for purposes other than what it was originally intended, well, what the Crown originally intended it for. And as I said, it was a bill that had merit. The issues were certainly worth consideration, and that is why Labour supported it going to Select Committee. And Mr. Flavel opened by thanking the Select Committee and saying that the door was open. He felt listened to, and the bill was discussed by everybody. I'm sure the people of Rodney would have enjoyed the same level of consideration from the government. They, of course, were shut down at first reading. But again, this is an issue of land and who controls land, and who has a say in the way we use our land. And so I think the people of Rodney had just as much reason to have their consideration taken to Select Committee and had the sunlight shone on their issues, as would have a whole host of other things. This government. This is a rare moment where the government has actually given people an opportunity to make submissions on an issue, and there were 71 submissions on this bill, which means the discussion was obviously quite varied, and there were a range of views heard. Well, a range of views could also have been heard on my colleague here, Phil Twyford's bill about the privatisation of Auckland assets. That would have been a bill that would have been could have had some good discussion at Select Committee. Darian Fenton, she had a bill to discuss minimum wages for contract workers. That would have been quite a good bill to have at Select Committee as well. I think the discussion, just like for this bill, the discussion would have been interesting, and we could have come back to the House and considered what the people had to say, what the public actually thought about that bill. But no, the government shut that one down. Ruth Dyson had an amendment to the Resource Management Act to do with the requiring authority status. That was shut down in the first reading. Winnie Laban had, I thought, a very important bill. I thought this was a very important bill dealing with the rights of families of people who are suffering from poor mental health. And I know that bill came very, very close to actually making it through to Select Committee. That would have been a good bill to have taken to Select Committee. But you know what's the common theme here? Those were all Labour bills, and the government wouldn't be prepared to allow those bills to go through to Select Committee, because what we've seen with this bill is that there is a very good opportunity at Select Committee to hear the issues and maybe not to progress the bill any further after that, but to stimulate some debate so that those issues can be considered and maybe looked at in another way. With this bill, there has been a proposal about a review, or maybe that there are already a few mechanisms available through the Treaty of Waitangi and other issues. But that's all come up as a result of the parliamentary process. It seems the only way you can actually get this government to rethink its position on anything is to gather a march up Queen Street in Auckland and show them that there is political will against what they're doing and that maybe the next election would be at stake. Then we'll get a back down, as we've seen on mining. Then we'll get a back down. But it would be far better to use the political process in the way that Mr Flavel has with this bill. A good bill with good intentions and has raised a number of issues that were worth considering, and I know that the Select Committee took a lot of time over them and listened very closely to the submissions, and that is the value of our process, and it could be used in a whole range of ways. But I think the issues with this bill have been well covered by previous speakers. It is a pity that it's not going to go on, but I think this isn't the end of this issue. We will see this issue again. Maybe Mr Flavel will find another way to put it through legislation. Maybe the government will actually suddenly rumble into action and look at the Public Works Act and all the other anomalies that there may be within it. But I congratulate Mr Flavel on bringing this bill to the House. It's sad that it will probably not progress any further than this. But he's raised some important issues worth discussion.
Call David Clendon.
Thank you, Mr.